Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. New evidence, or rather evidence that has now been confirmed by the prosecution in regards to the Brian Koberger case. And that evidence has to do with evidence that initially came out in 2023, but the prosecution never verified this evidence. And that was evidence that Brian Koberger had ordered a K-bar knife and a knife sheath on Amazon. It is, in fact, now being confirmed by the prosecution. And this is extremely, extremely powerful evidence. Circumstantial, yeah, circumstantial. What you've learned on this show, that circumstantial evidence piled up high is very powerful evidence. The second thing in this evidence dump here is this picture right here. That allegedly was taken the morning of the murders by Brian Koberger, a selfie. And one of the things that's important about this photograph is that look at his eyebrows. Are they not bushy? And the defense has denied that he has bushy eyebrows. Well, right now, I would imagine he shaves them every week or so. But Dylan Mortensen reported seeing a man with a mask on, and one of the things was an athletic build, but not muscular, but bushy eyebrows. So does that not confirm right there that he has bushy eyebrows? It certainly does. So all of this evidence, if allowed in, of course, the defense is going to kick and scream that this should be thrown out. If this evidence is not suppressed, it is extremely powerful evidence for the prosecution. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your loved ones. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Mando full body deodorant. Mando, the thing that I like most about Mando body deodorant is that it lasts all day and leaves me feeling clean and fresh. It doesn't quit even under the harshest heat and humidity. The fresh feeling keeps me dry and confident, and there's no need to worry about unsightly sweat stains. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack. Use code POLICE, police in capital letters at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Joining me tonight is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College, retired NYPD Sergeant, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Welcome, Mike.
Bill, good to see you. Thank you for having me on.
You know, Mike, I know that on a previous show you had mentioned that Brian Koberger had purchased a K-bar knife off of Amazon and a knife sheath, much like, of course, the one in this thumbnail that was found under the body of one of the victims. Now it is confirmed by the prosecution that, in fact, they have evidence that he ordered in March, I think it was of 2022.
That's right.
He ordered a K-bar knife and a knife sheath. How powerful of evidence is that, Mike?
Bill, you really cannot understate the significance of this. And I'm glad the prosecution has finally, totally openly acknowledged it. There was always the hints about it, rumors about it, but it is extremely important because business records from places like Amazon are considered very reliable. So this is business records. It's going to come in as an exception to hearsay. And so therefore, that's going to be admissible at his upcoming trial. And the fact that what he purchased was exactly the type of knife that the coroner and the police believe killed those 4 innocent people. And the fact that he ordered it in March, he ordered the knife, he ordered the sheath to go with it, and he ordered a sharpener, that acknowledgement is devastating to the defense because it shows possibly what they call state of mind. What was his state of mind in March of 2022 when he ordered those items? And if you could connect that as a prosecutor to a date of acceptance to the University of Washington, it may be very devastating because it may show that his state of mind was one that he bought this knife in order to commit a crime when he got to his new school, if he got accepted around that time. Remember, he's not a hunter. He's not a sports person. I bet if you looked at his Amazon account, you don't see any other sporting goods being purchased. This singular purchase stands out. It's strong circumstantial evidence.
Absolutely. This is from the Today Show on NBC News.
This morning, a new image of Brian Koberger, allegedly taken just hours after prosecutors say he murdered 4 University of Idaho students back in 2022. The selfie, part of a trove of new documents revealing how lawyers on both sides may be planning to argue their cases at his murder trial in August. Among them, this filing detailing Koberger's Amazon purchases, which his attorneys have been fighting to get thrown out as evidence. According to prosecutors, Koberger bought a K-bar knife and sheath just months before they say he killed Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, and Kaylee Goncalves in their off-campus home. According to police, a K-bar knife sheath was found next to one of the victims. With DNA, they say it was a statistical match with Koberger.
What does a knife sheath at a scene mean? That's going to be the ultimate question.
The filings show Koberger's attorneys are prepared to point to other possible suspects, writing, "This case is full of alternative perpetrators. The state has chosen to focus on Mr. Koberger at its own peril." They also point to new cell phone data, which they say shows the morning of the murders, the 2 surviving roommates were awake, texting and on Instagram earlier than previously known, and hours before they made a chilling, newly released 911 call.
911 location of your emergency. Hi, something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
After the murders, police say one of the surviving roommates told them she saw a masked man with bushy eyebrows in the home. Prosecutors now revealing that after Koberger's arrest, she told police, "I have no clue whether Koberger was the same man she had seen." The defense has said Mr. Koberger does not have bushy eyebrows, but prosecutors now including this new photograph in their latest filings, writing, "Whether or not Brian Koberger can be described as having bushy eyebrows is a factual determination to be decided by the jury."
And Liz, has the defense given any more hints about what they're going to use as Koberger's alibi here?
Well, yeah, Laura, as you know, up until now, his attorneys have said he was out driving alone at the time of the murders. Well, they're now asking the judge to allow witnesses to explain why that behavior could be linked to his autism diagnosis. They say that that diagnosis is why he has difficulty sleeping, which has led to his habit of driving at night. They are also saying Koberger suffers from physical impairments and does not have the speed and coordination to commit the murders, get to and from his car, and change his clothes in the time frame that prosecutors have laid out. And remember, a judge has entered a not guilty plea on his behalf, Laura.
It'll be interesting to see what the...
So, Mike, so powerful. And,
yeah.
you know, something, I would be nervous if this case was still in Latah County in Moscow, Idaho, because Judge John Judge was ruling on the side of the defense much more often than Judge Stephen Hippler, who is the Boise judge, is much stricter and I think more knowledgeable in the application of the law than perhaps Judge John Judge. I think Judge John Judge wanted no part of that case. But now this evidence, Mike, is so powerful. And I think the judge is 100. Why would the judge throw it out? For what reason?
No reason to throw it out, so long as it demonstrates some propensity to advance either the defense or the prosecution's theory as to an issue in question, an issue that they're going to fight about that's contested. Here, that obviously the knife, the Amazon purchase of the knife sheath and the sharpener is devastating to the defense. And the picture is time-stamped. It's time-stamped about like 10:15 in the morning, which theoretically is about 6 hours, 5 hours and 45 minutes after the crimes occurred. Here he is in the shower with a shirt on, clean shirt on. His hair looks wet, like he just gotten out of the shower, and he's got a thumbs up, and he's looking at the camera. It's obviously a selfie. Like, good thumbs up means approval, good job. I want to know, is that a singular event, or does he take a picture of himself in that like that very often? It's obviously not a habit. I bet there may be some selfies. Occasionally we take a selfie when we're on vacation, but we don't usually take selfies when we step out of the shower and go, good job. So I have a feeling that singular photo with that timestamp on that date is very unique, and it does show his eyebrows very clearly. And I think that the fact that he was described as having bushy eyebrows and before is as the prosecution says, let the jury decide whether that picture on that date represents a person about 6 feet tall, slim, athletic build with bushy eyebrows. Let the jury see that. This is totally devastating to Kohberger's defense.
Mike, also for those that, and we've experienced lots of them, not that it's important to us, but it does get a little bit, I find it annoying. Of all the people that say Brian Kohberger is innocent, there's gangs of cartels of people that did this, which there's no evidence whatsoever of that. So I will guarantee, and I've said this all along, that the prosecution has more smoking gun evidence that they have not yet released. And at some point you may see the defense say, okay, we'll take a plea because we can't risk the death penalty here. And and the prosecution has an extremely, extremely strong case. So I would not be surprised that at some point, some negotiations go on for a plea deal. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Bill, I 100% agree. You've been involved in many cases, you and Phil, and I've been involved in cases where the defense puts up a good fight and tries to get all the evidence, incriminating evidence suppressed. When they lose those motions and the case goes to court, they know now exactly what they're looking at. They know what the problems are and the issues that the guilt or innocence is going to be decided on, and they wisely take a plea. That's if one is offered. And in New York City, you get a lot of plea offers because the dockets are full. Here, I think probably Ann Taylor has already talked to Bill Thompson, and I think she would love to have take a plea to like life behind bars without possibility of parole. I think at this point, she's just trying to save his life. She knows he's going to be found guilty. It's just whether or not she can convince one person on that jury not to vote for the death penalty and go for life behind bars. Oh, absolutely. That she is doing everything she can to be a great attorney for Kohberger. She's fantastic. He's getting great representation, but she absolutely wants to go for a plea bargain because these things are devastating. They're small little tidbits of information, but they're circumstantial evidence that would lead an ordinary prudent juror to believe that he committed the crimes. We're not talking about guilt or innocence anymore. We're talking about trying to save his life.
This is Banfield with Brian Enton.
In this case since the very beginning. Brian, I know that literally up until this moment, you have been going through these court docs, and I think you're still going through them. So there may be more shoes to drop, but let's start with what we know. And let's just start with that K-bar knife because, I felt like the biggest moment in this case was that they found the knife sheath. And then the second biggest moment was that they figured out DNA on the snap, that little spot here on the knife sheath, the thing that snaps it shut. That's where that little tiny speck of DNA was, and that it matched Bryan Kohberger. But now we have him in court documents from Amazon buying a K-bar knife, a sheath, and a sharpener.
Yeah, more than 100 pages of court documents came out just within the last couple of hours, and this was buried in the documents. And you mentioned it. I mean, this is a massive deal. This is a huge, huge piece of evidence, something very, very helpful to the prosecution. They are saying that between March 20th and March 30th of 2022, so that would be about 8 months before the murders happened, that Bryan Kohberger, through his Amazon account, bought the K-bar knife, bought the sheath, and also bought a sharpener.
So what I thought was also interesting, and I may be, superimposing my thoughts over their documents here, but it felt to me that the prosecution was making its case by saying we did not cherry pick. We didn't cherry pick anything. What we did was we found a purchase of what was a murder weapon, similar to a murder weapon and a sheath. And also, we looked at other activity, and never did he seem to be a hunter. Never did he seem to be a fisherman buying this stuff all the time. It seemed to be just this one time that he bought this kind of weapon.
Mike, Banfield is raising a very good point. And the point, like you said earlier, he's not a hunter, he's not a fisherman, he's not an outdoorsman, but he buys this knife and a sharpener 8 months before this crime, which gave him time also to familiarize himself with how to use a knife like this. This knife has something on it called a hilt. And the hilt is simply that, I don't know if you could see it on this, the arrow, you're not seeing it on the screen, but the hilt is right at the end of where the blade goes into the sheath, and it prevents your hand from slipping onto the blade if it did in fact get wet with blood, without being so graphic, that's what in fact happens. And that is one of the reasons why people that assault people with knives, they frequently cut themselves, because blood gets on the handle of the knife, their hand slips, and they actually cut themselves with the knife. So great points made by Banfield. Yes, that he bought this knife. He's not a hunter. He's not a fisherman. He's not an outdoorsman. And the most important part, when you look at it on the screen, is the knife sheath was left in the crime scene in the bed with one of the victims. And on that button was his DNA. I mean, people that don't want to believe he did this, I don't think that you're facing facts. That is so powerful. That evidence is unbelievably powerful. Let me go back to Banfield now.
Yeah, they looked at all of the activity, all of the Amazon activity for several different time periods leading up to the murders. And what's interesting is the way we found this out is there's filings going back and forth between the defense and the prosecution, because the defense is trying to get a lot of this Amazon information and Amazon activity thrown out. Obviously, I mean, now we know why. It's damning to Bryan Kohberger. So they've been saying, hey, the state is cherry picking, some of this stuff shouldn't be included. And in those filings back and forth, that's where this massive tidbit was, right, buried in the documents, that Bryan Kohberger had bought the knife sheath on Amazon.
Sure, we'll be interested to find out what his answers are to where is that knife that you proudly bought. It wasn't in any of, well, we don't know, but I didn't see it on a manifest of any of the search warrants at his apartment or in Pennsylvania. I didn't see a K-bar knife, a knife sharpener, or a knife sheath in anything that they were able to seize from all the places that they searched of his. So it would be interesting if this had nothing to do with anything, then where's your precious K-bar knife that you spent all that money on, on Amazon back in March? And he, better have a pretty good answer for that. Let me jump to that selfie.
Well, Mike, that's sort of academic. He can never be asked that question. He can never be asked that. He can be asked that by his attorneys, but that would never become public. He's not going to take the stand. So
that's the only time that's going to come out is if he takes a stand in some last ditch effort that 1 second left on the clock, 99-yard touchdown throw. I mean, that's all it's going to be. But he's not going to have to answer to that. However, I'm thinking if he bought that in March of 2022, I'm guessing, and I would love to know, when was the date that he was accepted as a graduate student, a PhD student in the University of Washington program? Maybe a couple of days before that. I'm thinking there might be it's not a coincidence. I'm thinking there may be a reason why he bought it in March, not February, not April. And so if that could be married up to an acceptance letter, that would show that once he got an acceptance letter, he knew he was going to cross country. He would start to think about committing a horrific crime, the perfect crime, to see if he can get away with it. Remember, he was enamored with the BTK killer and other serial killers. And so therefore, that would be a really good indication of state of mind.
You know, Mike, just we're going to get back to Banfield, but the other part of this, of course, is this selfie.
Yeah.
Was he sort of being self-congratulatory that I just murdered these 4 kids? And he's the thumbs up with his left hand is the thumbs up. I just killed these 4 kids. And if that is, we view that on the thumbnail, that it's creepy, very creepy that he did that. Let me get back and put Banfield back on, and they're going to speak about this.
Giving the thumbs up and being super proud, looking freshly washed right in front of the shower. And this was exactly at, was it 10:39, that photograph that was taken?
10:31 a.m.
10:31.
November 13th. So the day of the murders. The murders happened sometime around 4 a.m. This is 10:31 a.m. I was looking at it really closely. It looks like maybe he's in the bathroom, like in front of a shower, if you look closely. And this was just sort of buried in these new court documents. We haven't really seen photos of him like this before, but they recovered this photo from his phone. And the reason that the prosecution is so interested in this photo is because of roommate Dylan's account that he had, that whoever came into their home had bushy eyebrows. That was one of the main things that she said. So this is apparently the photo closest to that time period of when the murders happened. And the prosecution wants to use this photo at trial to show the jury so they can look at this picture for themselves and decide whether or not, he's got bushy eyebrows.
One of the other things I question here, Mike, is that if the prosecution just released this evidence that to us is so powerful, what else do they have? What else haven't they released yet that is just going to be like, just blow up the whole defense case if they have more powerful evidence, such as today's evidence? I'm wondering, what else do they have? Steve Goncalves came on Banfield also. I want to play a little of this, Mike, because we don't, I want to hear what he has to say. And think of this is the father of one of the victims, again, on Banfield.
And it's been hard on you more than anybody, just with the gag order and hearing things that make you think there was a chance that maybe Brian Kohberger could beat the rap. You saw what I saw. You saw what Brian Enton just laid out. There is a knife purchase. There is a sheath purchase, a sharpener, and that selfie and that map. Tell me your thoughts as you see all this new evidence come out.
We've been sitting on this one a little while. I'm glad. Finally, I've always felt like anything coming out of the court that any of the fact finders are going to have to see is the safest thing in the world to show. What could mess this up is a jury hearing all these YouTube people that just make up stuff and call speculation. Speculation is just another word for lying, creative lying or storytelling. But these are facts. So I don't know why we're 2.5 years into this trial or into this process that we're finally letting out the facts. But man, it feels good. It feels good to see the true fact and all the work and everything that these guys have done. I just wish we didn't have to wait 2.5 years to see it.
The detail is remarkable, and the photograph of Brian Kohberger in front of a shower at 10:31 a.m., seemingly very proud. When was the first time you saw that?
Just a few hours ago. That's an FU to Idaho. I just went into your state. I just killed your kids in their beds, and you're not going to catch me. I'm just going to shower up here, clean off the last bit of the evidence, probably take the shower curtain. Who knows where that's at? But yeah, that's a challenge to Idaho. So I hope everyone from Idaho is paying attention, and we need to bring everything at this guy.
Were you at all made aware that this massive document dump was about to happen tonight, and that we'd see the map, how many times the white Elantra was seen in front of your daughter's house, that we'd see that photograph, that we'd see the evidence, the purchase order for the K-bar knife sheath and the sharpener? Did you know this was coming?
I didn't know when it was coming, but I've seen some of this footage before. I would suspect even the officer's seen some of the stuff. So I know how powerful it is. I know how good it is. I had no clue who I was looking at. I had no clue what I was looking at. I just seen cars. I seen a white Elantra. I seen it come and go. I didn't know what I was.
On the screen we're seeing now is the suspect vehicle locations. Look at it. I mean, if that's not damning evidence, and we got that guy Howard Bloom that wrote that book, that you should just shut up because he doesn't know anything, and he's written, the evidence, this is the evidence. This is the documentary proof, not Howard Bloom and his book. It's like that book pisses me off because this guy wrote a book, obviously to make money when all the facts were not out. And is he poisoning the jury pool? You bet.
I was looking at it. I didn't even know what the time of the crime line was, but it's just hard to sit on the truth for so many years and be told that you need to do everything to help the person who killed your daughter. You're supposed to help him. And it's like, yeah, it's very frustrating because I just want the truth out and I want people to see what the truth is. Stop listening to these idiots that think, speculation is evidence. It's not. It's absolutely not. What's coming out of the courtroom right now is evidence.
So very interesting. And, Steve Goncalves, about time, man. The guy got something positive to happen in this case. And, again, he's frustrated. All the people, he mentioned a lot of the YouTube idiots that put up stuff that is just absolute garbage. That's a French word for garbage, and it's like, now this is true smoking gun, if you will, evidence. I want to just play a real quickly, Mike. I've played this numerous times as this case has gone forward. This is Steve Murphy, one of the best prosecutors in the country. I'm just going to play a little bit of this, what he said a couple of years ago.
The death penalty. These crimes were heinous. But yeah, they don't blame that. I don't blame them. But how does a prosecutor make this decision?
So a prosecutor under these circumstances will weigh the aggravating versus mitigating circumstances. It's essentially the same job that a jury will be asked to do. And this case is so overwhelmingly awful, for lack of a better term. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure within the DA's office to actually seek the death penalty on that.
And the evidence seems to be very strong. I mean, it's not circumstantial. There's DNA evidence, there's cell phone evidence, there's a lot of evidence here.
The evidence against Bryan Kohberger is overwhelming.
Boom, boom, boom. That was what I wanted to hear him say. The evidence against Bryan. And you know how many times I've played him on the show? And you know what people in the audience say? He's an idiot. He's a moron. He's one of the best prosecutors in the nation. And you just heard him say that. The evidence against Bryan Kohberger is overwhelming. I wonder what he would say now when this evidence just came out. So we're going to stay, obviously, with this case. It's getting closer and closer to the trial. We always want to remember the four. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and I'm forgetting the last one.
Zaina
Kernodle. And, that's what this case is all about, and their families, and just outrageous. Mike, your final thoughts, quick.
Final thoughts. It's been a disservice to all the victims. I know that the John Judge slapped on the do not speak order to everyone, and he did it for a good reason. But in that information vacuum, for the past 2 years, we've had common sense deniers, and as Steve Goncalves says, they get creative and they're just lying and making up stories to fit some sort of thought process they have. That's coming out now, thank goodness, is setting the record straight before the trial. Ann Taylor is doing the best she can to try and get this information to be excluded from the trial. Why? Because it is damning circumstantial evidence of his guilt. So we're finally now getting a true idea of just the beginning, a peek into really how much evidence there is. And Matt Murphy in that video, he has done many death penalty cases and murder cases with multiple victims, and he knows the kind of evidence that is gathered by police in these scenarios. He doesn't even have to read the list of what the police have in the Koberger case. He already knows because he's been there many, many times. So anyone who's listening, please just listen to what the evidence is and withhold judgment, and don't go down rabbit holes listening to conspiracy stories that people spin. It's a disservice.
100%. Folks, thank you so much. This is Bill Cannon along with Professor Mike, Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you.
One episode just ain't enough.